Power traded for stability. It wasn't taken. It wasn't stolen. It was offered willingly, deliberately, and with the best of intentions. In exchange for calm, predictability, and peace of mind, power was quietly placed on the table and left behind. Most people believe power is lost in moments of weakness, but more often, it's surrendered in moments of fear. Fear of chaos, fear of volatility, fear of being the one responsible when things go wrong. And in today's world, stability has become the most seductive currency of all. The billionaire at the center of this story had lived through storms, market crashes, public scrutiny, near failures that tested resolve and reputation. Each time, instinct and decisiveness had carried the empire through, but scars remained, and scars change how leaders think. The reveal began after a period of turbulence finally settled. The company stabilized, revenues normalized, the pressure eased. Advisors began speaking a new language: resilience, insulation, long-term protection. Not growth, not dominance. Protection. They proposed safeguards, stronger governance, automatic constraints, rules that would prevent sudden moves, dramatic risks, and unilateral decisions. Nothing radical, nothing aggressive. Just enough structure to ensure that no single person could ever destabilize the empire again, including the billionaire. At first, the billionaire resisted. Power had always been a tool that saved the company in moments of uncertainty. But fatigue softened conviction. The desire for calm grew stronger than the hunger for control. Stability began to look like wisdom, so compromises were made. Decision thresholds were raised. Emergency powers narrowed. Autonomy replaced with protocol. Each change felt responsible. Each one reduced anxiety. The empire felt safer, quieter, smoother, less exposed. The billionaire slept better. The markets responded positively. Everyone praised the maturity of the move. And that was the danger, because with every safeguard added, something else diminished. Speed slowed. Intuition hesitated. Authority blurred. The billionaire still led, but only within lanes defined to prevent disruption. Power had not vanished. It had been traded, and once exchanged for stability, it never comes back the same. The first signs were subtle. A delayed response here, a missed opportunity there. Nothing catastrophic, nothing dramatic, just a growing sense that when decisive moments arrived, the empire no longer leaned forward. It leaned back. The trade had been made, and the true cost of stability had yet to be paid. The cost revealed itself in moments that demanded nerve, not crises. Those were now rare by design, but inflection points. Situations where timing mattered more than certainty, and hesitation quietly rewrote outcomes. The reveal deepened when an unexpected market shift appeared. Not a collapse, not a boom, a bend, the kind that rewards those who move before consensus forms. The billionaire saw it immediately. Years of experience sharpened instinct. This was a moment to lean forward, but the safeguards pushed back. Protocols required validation. Committees needed review. Risk assessments expanded the timeline. The system worked exactly as designed, to prevent sudden action. By the time approval arrived, the bend had straightened. Competitors had moved. The empire remained stable and smaller. No one panicked. Reports framed the outcome as prudent. Stability had been preserved. The billionaire nodded, outwardly calm, inwardly unsettled. This wasn't about one opportunity. It was about a pattern forming quietly beneath the surface. The conflict sharpened as similar moments followed. Each time, instinct surfaced first. Each time, protocol slowed response. Each time, the outcome was the same: safety achieved, advantage lost. The empire was no longer shaping the future. It was surviving it gracefully. Inside leadership meetings, the tone shifted further. Conversations centered on risk avoidance rather than possibility. Leaders learned which ideas passed review and which stalled indefinitely. Ambition recalibrated itself downward, not by mandate, but by habit. The billionaire noticed themselves hesitating before speaking, not because they doubted their judgment, but because they already knew the response. We need more analysis. Let's revisit next cycle. That exceeds our thresholds. The language of stability had become reflex. The emotional weight built quietly. This was not the pain of failure. It was a discomfort of watching strength convert into caution. The billionaire had not been overruled. They had been protected. And protection, once internalized, reshapes behavior. You stop pushing against walls. You begin designing within them. The empire had learned to avoid danger so well that it no longer reached for opportunity. The conflict reached a subtle but critical moment when a younger leader asked why the company no longer moved first. The question wasn't accusatory. It was curious, and it cut deeper than any criticism. The billionaire had no immediate answer, because the truth was uncomfortable. The company could still act. It just wasn't allowed to surprise. Power had been traded for stability, and stability, it turned out, was expensive in ways no balance sheet could show. The next realization would force the billionaire to confront whether calm was worth the quiet erosion of influence, or whether the trade itself had gone too far. The conflict surfaced fully when stability began to feel like stagnation. The empire was safe, predictable, admired for its discipline, and slowly losing relevance at the edges. Not failing, not collapsing, just drifting behind those willing to move first. The billionaire felt it during a strategy summit meant to define the next decade. The presentations were polished, the forecast conservative, every proposal optimized for minimal downside. The room was calm, professional, and deeply restrained. No one spoke about bold leaps. No one challenged assumptions. Stability had become the unspoken ceiling. When the billionaire finally asked a simple question, what would we do if safety wasn't a priority? The room went quiet. Executives exchanged glances. Someone answered carefully, that would violate our risk framework. That was the moment the trade became undeniable. The safeguards had not just protected the company from chaos. They had protected it from ambition. The system had learned to survive any storm, but not to sail toward uncharted waters. Influence, once expressed through decisive movement, had been converted into permission-bound suggestion. The emotional peak hit when the billionaire reviewed a comparative timeline. Competitors who had once followed were now leading, not because they were smarter or better funded, but because they were faster, willing to accept volatility in exchange for position. The empire remained stable and irrelevant to the future being written. The billionaire felt a quiet grief, not for lost profits, but for lost courage. The company still respected them, still listened, still aligned, but alignment without action had become a form of inertia. Power, stripped of risk, had lost its edge. The realization cut sharply. Stability had not failed. It had succeeded too well. By removing fear, it had removed urgency. By removing volatility, it had removed vision. By removing danger, it had removed leadership. The conflict now demanded an answer. Either accept a future defined by safety, or confront the cost of the trade and reclaim the right to risk. The next decision would not be popular. It would not feel calm, but it would determine whether the empire remained protected or once again became powerful. The climax arrived when the billionaire accepted that stability was no longer a shield. It was a ceiling. In a closed strategy session, they spoke without slides, without forecasts, without the language of protection. They named what everyone felt but avoided. The empire was safe, admired, and slowly surrendering its future. Then came the decision that broke the calm. The billionaire ordered a reversal of the trade, not recklessly, not dramatically, but deliberately. Safeguards were not removed, they were rebalanced. Emergency authority was restored for moments that demanded speed. Risk thresholds were rewritten to allow movement before certainty. Decision windows were narrowed so opportunity could not expire, while permission circulated. The room reacted with visible discomfort. Some executives warned of instability. Others feared investor reaction. Advisors cautioned that calm, once broken, is difficult to rebuild. The billionaire listened, then said something that cut through every objection. Stability that cannot move is already failing. The shift was immediate and unsettling. Decisions accelerated. Some bets succeeded. Others did not. Volatility returned, not as chaos, but as consequence. The empire felt alive again. Uneasy, alert, responsive, the market noticed. So did competitors. The resolution unfolded unevenly. Short-term confidence wavered. Headlines questioned the change. But beneath the noise, something fundamental returned. Timing, initiative, the ability to arrive first instead of safely later. Inside the company, leaders relearned something they had forgotten. Safety is not the absence of risk. It is the ability to choose when to accept it. And that choice requires power willing to feel uncomfortable. The billionaire stood back and watched the organization adjust. It was not calmer. It was sharper, not quieter, but clearer. The empire had not abandoned stability. It had stopped worshiping it. And the final lesson settled with precision. Power is not control without fear. It is judgment with courage. Stability feels like wisdom until it becomes avoidance. And when that happens, the future belongs to those still willing to move. Sometimes the smallest shift in perspective becomes the beginning of a new future.